Welcome back to Today in Atlanta Sports. We have a whole episode of Braves talk with my man, Can't Guard Jake Gordon. Jake Gordon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I mean, unfortunately, it's an off day, so I have to watch the NBA refs sell out the Hawks again tonight. So that's pretty much my
We
only
don't even get
option.
to Hawks tonight. It's a fucking off day again. We have them tomorrow.
Oh, so we have
Yeah,
nothing. That's somehow worse.
yeah.
All right.
It's like, oh my God, it's crazy. You get and it's crazy how we started with 14 games in 14 days and a West Coast road trip. I mean, talk about brutal scheduling. But then it's when the baseball season comes on, you're so used to the Braves playing. So when they don't play, you're just like, dude, what the hell do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I guess it's Thursday night. Like, I'll go and like have a beer with the boys. But it's like usually I'm just like locked in. Like, all right, Braves are on. Like, I'm just gonna watch this.
Thursdays are my day at Bar South, so I at least have that
Yeah,
going for
yeah.
me.
You were gonna be there regardless. It didn't matter if the Braves. But yeah, I wanted to start it off. We start off the season 6-8. This is the first podcast we've done of the season. Not great, but hey, we were literally 6-8 last year. And I saw Mark Bowman tweet. We were also 6-8 in 2002 and 2003, 2 seasons we won 100-win games. So I think I know the answer to this question because I know you think a lot like me, and we've been cheering for the Braves for too long to get fooled and get caught up in 14 games. But panic meter 1 to 10. I mean, what is the panic meter on this team after
I give it
14 games?
I give it a smooth 1.7. I'm not that worried, man. I keep telling everybody this team wasn't over 500 until August last year. It really doesn't matter right now. I mean, you want to see guys play better. I'm more concerned with individual performances than I am with wins and losses. That's not my biggest concern right now. But a couple of guys are cold, and they're going to have to pick it up. But this is a team that's going to be getting Ronald Acuna back very soon, and we all know he's the straw that stirs the drink. He's the man who makes the magic happen, and he can pull you back from the depths of hell when you think you're lost. So that's got me excited, really.
Yeah, if I could go negative, but I guess that would be cheating. I would be in the negatives of panic meter because one, you haven't even played a game with Ronald Acuna. We just came off a West Coast road trip against two very good teams where, if Austin Riley, if things swing a little bit better, we come off a winning Western road trip, including, possibly winning a series in Chavez Ravine, which we haven't done since 2011. So, I mean, the Braves had some brutal scheduling. They obviously didn't have Acuna. We missed out on Austin Riley. We've been kind of figuring out things with the rotation because of a shortened spring training, and you're still 6-8. I mean, and then you look at the upcoming schedule, you get a nice homestand versus the Cubs and Marlins, where you should be able to take care of business and win both of those series. If not, win 5 out of 6. And then you get a struggling Texas team after that. So you got a much more manageable schedule. But yeah, I mean, I don't even look at the standings this early in the season. It doesn't matter what the Mets are doing. I mean, you look at the Phillies. If the Phillies were looking at the standings, they're already freaking out. It's like, hey boys, we've been here, dude. It's all right. It's all going to be all right. Maybe not for them because their roster sucks. But when Acuna comes back, when the boys start hitting, the bottom of this lineup starts hitting, the rotation gets more in a groove. I mean, this team's going to string together wins. I mean, it's a more talented team than last year. And over 162 games, the cream always rises to the top. It may not always win a championship, but over 162 games, and then even add in making me less worried, we have expanded playoffs. Like we don't even have we can win less games and still sneak in. So yeah, I mean, if there was a negative amount of worry, I would be on that scale. I would be on the negative scale. But let's talk about the big news that we have upcoming. Ronald Acuna coming back, made his debut in Gwinnett earlier this week. He's now played 2 games. I think the biggest thing that surprised me was I thought the expectation, at least the reporting was, hey, he was going to DH. He was going to do this. Bro, the guy's played in the field, looked fine, stole a base the other day.
Stole a base.
It doesn't really seem like they're holding anything back here, which means I don't see, I know they said May 6th. If he's able to run, why the hell is he playing in Gwinnett? I don't think there's any reason for him to be playing in Gwinnett. I think we see him on this homestand over these next 6 games. I really do.
Yeah, I certainly, man. I just miss watching him play ball, man. He was easily the most fun player in baseball to me. The energy he brings, like I said, man, that guy can change a game with a swing of a bat. Any game, doesn't matter how much you're down. He's an energizer. He is the best player on the team. He has been the best player on this team for a long time. I miss his energy.
Yeah, I definitely think when you look at the Braves lineup, there's a lack of just juice. I mean, the lineup without Ronald Acuna, because the depth's not great on this team, is okay. It's not great. And then you take Austin Riley out because he's on paternity leave. It honestly sucks. It gets bad real quick when you take out 2 MVP caliber players. So when he gets back in there, I think it's going to be the scariest lineup in baseball. I mean, I know, we're going to talk about some of the guys who've been struggling, but eventually they're going to turn it around. I mean, they've proven over their careers they are who they are. People need to stop freaking out over 14-game sample size, especially when there's been no spring training. So, yeah, I mean, getting Acuna back out there is almost going to feel like a World Series in itself. It's going to be so. I mean, that was one of the most devastating sport. Like that hurt as much as any loss, like any like World Series loss, anything. Watching him go down, knowing that it was a serious injury, and then getting the result back that it was a torn ACL. But he said, I think he said something great. He said, when it happened, when the injury happened, when I started recovering, he's like, I didn't know if I was ever going to be the same player. And then he goes, now I think I'm going to be even better. So that's a scary thought. And like, I mean, dude, you watch all the highlights. Even though he's like 1 for 6 in Gwinnett, that ball he hit the other way, like in on his hand, just goes the other way with it, slaps it off the top of the wall in right center field. Stealing a base. He's pounding his chest. You see him in batting practice. He's hitting balls off the scoreboard. This guy's the same guy. It's just a matter of time before he's doing that in Atlanta.
Yeah, that was an awesome video too. When he caught that ball in right field, runs over to the kid, gives him a fist bump. He's just out there having fun, and it's good to see. Yeah, I know. I'm just happy he's back, man. That's bigger than any signing, any trade you could ever make. And speaking of trades and signings, talking about guys who are playing well, I tried to tell everybody, man, Matt Olson is a hell of a player. Leading the league in walks, leading the league in hits, leading the league in OPS. At least I think he was before last night. The guy's he's a ball player, man, and he's not. We see him try to get shifted. He's consistently beating the shift. He's hitting it to the he's hitting it down the line. He's hitting it to the gaps. He's going the other way. He's really turning into a complete hitter. And we saw what the Braves have done with Austin Riley, Jorge Soler, guys that have had trouble, getting consistent hits, maybe spilling out for power a little too much. And Matt Olson looks like an MVP candidate already.
Yeah, I mean, we won't talk about the series Freddie Freeman just had against us. He definitely, I definitely think he came out the big winner of that series, but good for him. I mean, he played well, and we all know Freddie can play. I think that's why we were all upset with how things went down. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, Matt Olson, he's exceeded all of my expectations. I knew he could hit bombs. I knew he could draw walks, but I think what I've been most impressed, I mean, and you kind of talked on it, is the approach. The approach has been phenomenal. I mean, he is a tough ass out. I mean, every time he's up there, like he's not swinging at any junk. Every count, if you get him out, is 3-2, 2-2. Like he's making you throw 5 pitches to get him out. He's never out on the first pitch. Super, super patient. Takes his walks. Can hit it at all fields. And you know what's scary? We haven't even really seen the power yet. Like he has 2 homers, but like there's going to be a stretch, even with these, and we can mention this now, these unjuiced baseballs that they threw out there this year. He's not going to be affected by that. Eventually, these home runs are going to start flying off his bat, and it's going to be like a whole nother level. Yeah, and it's scary. I mean, you look at his advanced statistics; it almost matches up. Like, there's nothing fluky about this start. Like, this is who he is. Like, is he going to hit 400 with a 580 OBP? No, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he sniffed closer to 300 and had a 400 OBP in this lineup.
Yeah, and we talked about this when we were there on opening day, man. The balls are just not flying. We were sitting right there in left field to the front. We were standing up thinking we were about to catch a home run ball, and they're just dying. And I said earlier, this feels like a lot like the beginning of last year where the Braves are hitting the ball hard, and it's just going right to somebody's glove. And that's not sustainable over the whole year, which is the reason I'm really not that worried.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked it up, but after the first couple series, I think the Braves were like 3rd in hard hit percentage, yet we're like 28th in scoring. And the teams ahead of them that were like the Dodgers and the Astros, who were like 1st and 2nd in scoring. So yeah, it isn't sustainable. It's that simple. Eventually, these things are going to hit. I mean, you look at a guy like Alex Dickerson. I mean, that guy's smoked like 5 balls to the warning track and hasn't gotten a single hit. And yeah, the balls have been dying. That's just a whole nother story that I don't even want to get into. It's crazy how they just keep changing the baseballs, not telling anyone. And just like, and it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And I don't know why they did change it. Like to slow down the game. Like, fuck that. I want to see bombs. Like, I love watching balls leave yard. Like that, like I can, wait the minute of him jogging around the bases. Like we can wait for that. I'm shocked, but they definitely did it. And it couldn't be more obvious.
Man, there's 2 or 3. I think Marcelo Ozuna should honestly have 2 or 3 more home runs than he does. I think Ozuna's been hit really bad by that.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the good side of things. So let's talk about Ozuna. That's a guy who bounced back. I mean, that's another just injection into this Braves lineup that we didn't even have last year. I mean, people want to say, oh, we didn't have Acuna. We didn't have Ozuna either. And yeah, he wasn't playing well for those 40, 50 games that he was there. But we know who Marcell Ozuna is. And he looks like that Marcell Ozuna so far this year. And yeah, you kind of forget about all that shit that happens when he keeps raking and hitting bombs. And that's kind of what we said was going to happen. If he starts playing really well, that's the quickest people to make people forget about everything and just focus on baseball. He's done a great job of that. He hasn't let the noise get to him, the pressure get to him. He looks great. I mean, he's been outside of Olsen. He's probably been the second best player. Him and Riley, second best hitters on the team so far. They've really been carrying this lineup.
Yeah, and Ozzy, I think I might still be tied for the league lead in home runs, but Ozzy's still just being Ozzy. I mean, he's the same player he's always been. It's really been 5 times that's really been killing Atlanta for the most part. And when you talk about those top of the order guys, you just got guys not getting on base. I think you said they had like 50 home runs, and I think all but one of them have been solo shots. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, only one runner home run with runners on base, which is just another example of just poor luck. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But part of that is these back of the order guys, especially when you have a DH, they set up the top of the order, and they just haven't been doing that because Ozzy's not really an on base guy. So you really need the guys like Swanson. That's why we have Swanson hitting ninth, to go out there and have a viable threat to get a hit and get on base, hustle, single, whatever it is. He just hasn't been doing that. Adam Duvall has yet to hit a home run. He's striking out left and right, just like Swanson. Rosario's hitting under 100. And Darno's been hitting, but your catcher doesn't play every day. Your catcher doesn't play every day. So, the back of that lineup, once they start picking it up, and that's the other thing that's like these guys that are hitting right now are hitting with nobody on base, which is much harder to do than when you have 3 guys on base. So you start, putting 2-3 men on base for Matt Olson, it's going to be even easier for him. So, the floodgates will open once these guys start getting hits. And I also think getting Ronald Acuna back, that'll help a ton. It'll take some pressure off everybody. But eventually the floodgates are open, and I think everything's going to be okay. On the pitching side of things,
it's like a lot of pitchers are getting in rhythm too. They're not working out of the stretch. They're not worried about runners on base. And that's a big deal. No matter how good you are, it doesn't matter if you're an Austin Riley, you're a Matt Olson, you're a guy who can put up MVP numbers. If there's nobody on base, pitcher's working out of his windup, and he's sat 3 or 4 guys down in a row, it's harder. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah. It's a lot different. On the pitching side of things, when we're talking about the good, let's talk about our boy Kyle Wright. We've been preaching it. We were preaching it all off season, and he's making us look really good. I think he could be, I love Ian Anderson, and we know what he can do in the playoffs. But I really think Kyle Wright could be that third guy for the Braves this year. I wouldn't be surprised if in October we're talking about him starting Game 3 over Ian Anderson.
Yeah, maybe. That's just the thing with Kyle Wright, man. We've said if he couldn't get over that mental hump after going out in the World Series and pitching like he did, it was probably just never going to happen. And right now it looks like he has. Now, what I want to see is I don't want to see this, but I want to see Kyle hit a little adversity. I want to see what happens when he has to fight a little bit, when he has to bounce back. Because so far, he's letting that stuff shine. He's letting it rip, and he looks fantastic. And I know this is who he can be. Everybody got so impatient with him, and I'm not saying he is this guy, but Jacob deGrom didn't debut in the MLB until he was like 26 or 27. That's about how old Kyle Wright is. Some guys just take a little longer than others. And you can't give up on the type of stuff he has. The guy probably throws 7 or 8 pitches, and they're all nasty. And now that he's got a little confidence to him, he's got a little swagger in his step, he looks like an ace. And if he keeps pitching like this, who knows? Like I said, the sky's the limit for this kid. It always has been, and it's just all about patience. And it's really, really nice to see him playing well because I know this is who he can be.
Yeah, Wright's totally changed his repertoire over the last season and a half, too. When he was down in Gwinnett, which hopefully we see something like that happen with Yanoa, who just got a stint in Gwinnett. That's where you go to work on things. And he spent a whole year down there, and I was completely fine with that because I was tired of the whole yo-yoing thing. And he came back up, and he started throwing – his sinker was his primary pitch. He rarely throws a 4-seam fastball. And then he switched from a slider to a curveball, more of like a Morton-like curveball, that sharp pitch. It's a lot different than the slider that he was throwing. And he still has those other options to go to, but those are his primary pitches. And he's found a ton more success. And more than anything, he's found confidence. And when you have that kind of stuff and you have that kind of confidence, that's a dangerous combination. And I see no reason. I mean, I do agree. Like, there's going to be a point in the season where Kyle Wright has two bad starts. It's inevitable. Every pitcher has them. Max Fried had two bad starts to start the season, and then he comes back and throws almost a perfect game against the Dodgers. But that's who we know Max Fried is. Can Kyle Wright be that guy? And I think that's what we're trying to wonder. When those two bad starts does happen, can he limit it to like 4 runs over 5 innings instead of getting blown out there in the second inning? And can he bounce back the next time out and still have that same confidence we've seen the first 2 times out?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So let's talk about the bad. We've already we've like brushed over these guys, but Swanson, Rosario, I mean, Swanson, my man, it is unbelievable how this dude can go out and hit like the best shortstop and play the best defense in baseball for 3 months of the year. And then for the other 2 or 3, just forget like what hitting is. I mean, he looks like a AA player out there. I mean, he looks so lost. I mean, in the second series against Washington, they struck him out on a 3-2 pitch with an 89-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle. Like, that ball should be 50 rows up into the deck. And I have no idea what is going on. And then, I mean, sliders away. I mean, it's like watching a 10 times worse Austin Riley when he was struggling right now. I mean, it's that bad.
I wouldn't be I wouldn't be opposed to giving him a day off either. I think he could benefit from that. I mean, I know today's a day off. Maybe stick Arcia, maybe even Demerit short or something, man. Just let him clear his head, get him in the cages. Because whatever he's doing right now, it most certainly is not working at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's really bad. I do remember last year at some point him taking kind of a day off, but it was way later in the season when he was struggling. And then he came back and I think like got hot. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know what it is.
I do think he'll be fine. I think he'll regress to what he is, which is like a 240-ish hitter.
I have no problem with what Swanson's going to be. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a stretch coming up where he's going to hit 280 with 17 to 20 homers over 3 months. I mean, he's done it in the last 3 seasons, basically. One of them was a shortened season, but that's essentially what he was. And then, yeah, he'll end the season with a 245, 250 batting average, 20 to 25 homers, and he'll be, the 12th or 13th best shortstop in the majors. And that's what he is. I mean, I keep waiting for this breakout to happen. At the end of the day, I don't know what it is. I don't know how he gets in such bad funks, but it's part of who he is. And there's no denying that at this point in his career.
Well, you said it, man. Like, we got three series full of get right games all on the docket coming up. And that now's the time, man. I mean, it's early in the season, but we're not talking about bad. We're talking about god awful. Like, we're talking about 50% strikeout rate through like what?
Yeah,
75 at bats. Like, that is really bad.
I don't want to sit there and like be like, oh, like I could do that or something. But like, there are like, probably like some normal people out there that could figure out how to not strike out on 50% of I'm not gonna say me, maybe like an independent leaguer, but like it's that bad, like it is not good at all.
And I try to stay away from trashing Dansby because number one, I don't like to trash our players. Number two, everybody else does enough of that. But it doesn't help that Trey Turner is like one of my 5 favorite players in baseball, and he is a free agent, and Dansby isn't a contract year. And I feel like a lot of that stuff might be snowballing on him. I don't know, but he's got to fight through that, man. Like, this is a team coming off of a World Series. You can't fall asleep at the wheel now. Like, you gotta get right.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, obviously we're so far away from the end of the season to say this, but I have no idea how Dansby Swanson's re-signed by the Atlanta Braves. I don't see it. I thought it was.
This is what he is, and I mean, for the money that I think he's going to want for what he is, I don't think it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if he signs some like Andrelton Simmons sort of deal where it's like 5 years for $45 million, like okay, I could probably do that. But if you really look at like what Dansby is, I mean, he's approaching his 30s, and defensively he's been very good. But there's not a lot of 30-plus-year-old shortstops in the league. Like, you usually start going to different positions once you turn 30. So I don't really see him having that, value defensively that he's going to have on his next contract. And so then you're just paying him for his bat. Well, that's not that good. So I
It was a
think he's
hot
going to have,
market too.
yeah, yeah. And then you look at the shortstops that could be available. I mean, Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, like Xander Bogart, like those guys, like, yeah, I don't see it being very friendly market to Dansby, and he's dug himself into a hole, and that's my biggest worry about him coming out of it. I always think he's going to because that's how he always has played. He's just been so streaky. But in a contract year, I mean, things do change. I mean, this is pressure. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's playing for arguably $100 million, and right now he is losing out on that $100 million. So that's not a good feeling, and there's no way you can ignore how that could make a player feel. I mean, that's legitimate. That's not just like, oh, I
That's
mean,
not
it's almost like,
speculation. Yeah.
yeah, like that's like he is like feeling the pressure of possibly losing $100 million. And the way baseball works, I mean, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, he's made a good bit of money, but 100 mil is like 10 times what he's made in his career. So that's a big deal. On the pitching sides of the, oh no, I mean, we kind of talked about Rosario. I think Rosario is going to be fine. He's kind of like, the guy's been an 800 OPS guy every year. And he's always been streaky. It's just time for those. We could use a Rosario hot streak, though. I'll tell you that. If there was a time for Rosario to get it going, let's get it going this homestand. And
He's hitting the ball hard too. Like I've seen multiple times. He's hitting the ball hard. I think he's finally set it. He's having better at bats. Which is not the same. You can't say the same about Duvall or Dansby, but Rosario looks like he's taking a little bit of a different approach, and it's working a little bit. He's some counts. He's hitting the ball hard, and I think he's about to finally get a little bit closer to what he actually is.
let's speak real quick on Duvall because I'm not worried about Rosario. We've already kind of expressed our concerns with Dansby. Duvall is kind of a question mark too, because you're talking about another guy who is in a contract year, another guy that's in a contract year, and we've seen Duvall completely. I mean, when he first came to Atlanta, you would never thought that he would end up having this whole career for the Braves, winning a World Series, hitting 40 homers. Like you would have never ever thought that was possible after his first season with the Braves. Hell, I thought we were gonna, non-tender him right then. We ended up not, and things ended up working out. But I'm not, 14 games, no reason to panic. But there's a little there. If you're talking about panic meter here, like I'm at like a 5 with Dansby. I might be a little bit higher with Duvall, like maybe a 6, maybe a 6. Not too much, but I do think there's like, another guy in this contract year who we've seen struggle mightily in the past over a whole season. I do think there's a little bit to worry there along with Swanson.
Yeah, hindsight. I'm not going to play the hindsight game, but you look at a guy like Jock Peterson is playing very well. Our king, God bless him. Jorge Soler is Jorge Soler. I actually really haven't seen how he's been doing. I don't think he's playing
I know he was
particularly
struggling
super well.
to start. I know he was struggling to start, but I haven't checked
Yeah,
him
but
out.
it's one of those things where I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, you guess you should have done that, especially after 2.5 weeks. But he was the guy that everybody was like, okay, well, we can tender him arbitration. He's an arbitration guy. He's an easy choice to bring back. And it just kind of stings because we kind of thought we kind of just penciled in Duvall as a sure thing, like myself included. And I think he will bounce back. I don't think Duvall is going to hit like 200 this season with like 15 home runs. I think he will eventually be a little bit better. But yeah, his is pretty good this year. Hopefully he turns it around. He's a guy though. I mean, once he sees one go out, there will be a couple more follows. So I'm not too worried about him either.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also the average doesn't. I don't give a shit if he hits 210. If you give me 30
Yeah,
homers, like that, that's what
you're
we're
fine.
looking for. Give us
Yeah.
30 bombs, 30, 40 bombs. So let's talk about the bad. We'll give a quick RIP to Sean Newcomb and Jacob Webb, who are now members of the Diamondbacks and the Cubs. Two guys that had a lot of potential with the Braves, but you give a guy. I mean, there's a point where you just give guys opportunities. They don't make the most of them. They got a change of scenery is necessary. I wish them both the best. I still think they have talent, especially Newcomb. Chicago could be a great place for him. Where there's less pressure. I mean, I think the Andrelton Simmons trade, when you're the only guy coming over and Simmons goes out and produces 15 WAR, you're expected to produce, and it just never came to fruition. And I do think he has the stuff to make it happen. So RIP to him. Wish him the best. Anything you want to say about those two guys?
Yeah, what are the odds Sean Newcomb gives the Cubs like 3 perfect innings against us in a week or so?
I
I'd say like 80%.
I I would not be shocked at all. I mean, the guy certainly has the stuff, man. It's crazy. I mean, I thought Newcomb was going to be John Lester, like
Exactly. And now he's in Chicago. Me and my roommate, who was a Cubs fan, we were talking about that. I was like, we always thought he was going to be John Lester. And I do have to give a quick shout out to Alex Anthopoulos, man, because really when we DFA'd Nuke, I was like, oh, he's just going to be a free agent. He gets Jesse Chavez back. It looks like the Cubs are paying the rest of his contract this year. And even if Chavez isn't that great, something is better than nothing at this point. And we know how Jesse Chavez is. He's this organization. He gave the Braves some really quality innings last year when they were bleeding. So, hey, I thought it was a great move. Sean gets to a place with seems like a pretty good culture, solid team. I mean, it's the Cubs. And the Braves get Jesse Chavez back, the immediate replacement, even though he's not left-handed. But they get somebody to go in the pen.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win. The Cubs obviously aren't a team that you're thinking is going to compete for a World Series this year. They take a gamble on a guy like Newcomb, who could end up being a long-term piece for them and a really good piece. Chavez, a familiar face, with Luke Jackson going down, with Newcomb not being great, with Webb being DFA'd. All of a sudden, you kind of have a need for another arm. So to reunite with Chavez, who was unbelievable, 2.14 ERA in the regular season, was just as good in the postseason. Even started some games for us in the postseason. So, and he has like a 6 ERA for the Cubs, but it's over 5 innings. He gave up 3 earned runs in his first start. Like, I'm not even worried about what he's done so far this year. And I definitely think coming back to Atlanta, a place where he had a lot of success, where he's going to be, loved by the fans, especially if he comes out in one of those dorky hats that he wears.
Hey, the hat's clean. I got to draw a line there. The hat is clean.
The hat is clean. I'm just joking around. I just couldn't pull it off. That's just.
Oh, me neither. Absolutely not.
You're talking about a guy who wears like bucket hats and like
the dad Oakleys on the mound.
So yeah, welcome back, Jesse Chavez. Another member of the bad group that I have here is Huascar Ynoa, who's actually been sent back to AAA. I think that's good. I briefly said that, give him some time. And this guy was almost an all-star last year before he broke his hand. Obviously, since then, he hasn't been the same guy. I think there's just some crispness missing. He just hasn't been as crisp as he was before he got injured. I think he can figure out some things in AAA. And perhaps most importantly, I think if he wants to be a starter, is develop a third offering that he can rely on. Because if he can add that to his fastball slider mix, like, he's going to be a very dangerous pitcher. I mean, this guy's only 23 years old. I mean, he's been around forever, it seems like, and he's only 23. So I think people forget about that. I love the move sending him back to Gwinnett, where you can keep polishing his skills rather than sending him to the bullpen already.
Who was the catcher we traded to Minnesota for? It was oh God, I'm gonna have to look, but I will talk about while I look for that.
No. It was Jaime Garcia.
He was a catcher, or maybe we got a catcher back for.
It was Jaime Garcia, I'm pretty sure, and
Anthony Recker. Yeah, Anthony Recker.
Yeah.
But I'm not too worried about and even in that Dodgers start, obviously it ended poorly, but he looked better. He looked better than he did his first 2 starts. He still doesn't look like pre-broken hand, And like I said, I do think developing a third pitch is important. Maybe a cutter. He's already got the hard fastball, hard slider. Maybe a cutter, change up. Something to throw guys off. And I do think he still has potential as a starter. I'm not giving up on him yet. Like I said, he's 23 years old. And if he does have to go to the bullpen, I think he can be solid there. But it was time to get him down to Gwinnett. He didn't need to be up in Atlanta anymore, especially with Strider and Elder playing so well. I didn't see the need for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like sending guys with that like high-powered arms to the bullpen until you absolutely have to. Like, it's more like a last resort thing. Like, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Huascar Ynoa can thrive in the bullpen. Like, I don't need to be shown that, and the Braves don't need that right now. What we need is a 5th starter, and we think maybe Elder or Strider or Mueller or Davidson or whatever. But Ynoa is definitely one of the more talented in the mix, and it's funny because when you talk about a third offering, when you watch a guy who's like clearly a 2-pitch pitcher, kind of like Spencer Strider is, he's got the same hard fastball slider combination as Ynoa, and they don't really have a third offering, but they kind of go to a changeup. And then when you see him throw the changeup and like strike a dude out, it's like porn for like baseball people. It's like, oh, there it is. Like that's it. If you can do that again, we are going to be elite. And that's just kind of what I'm hoping to see from when he comes back. But it's hard to do. I mean, it's not like throwing a changeup in Little League. Like if you lob that changeup up or don't disguise it, that ball's getting golfed to the moon. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Yanoa, but I do think he'll spend a little time in Gwinnett before we see him again. But that brings us to the conversation of the fifth rotation spot. Who do you think wins it? I mean, right now it looks like Elder and Strider are kind of in a bottle. They've been like piggybacking off each other with Elder starting, Strider coming in after. Strider's been amazing. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. He has like 12 strikeouts in 9 innings, and he has given up 1 run and only 3 hits, and they've all been singles. Nobody has gotten a hit off his slider yet. Some pretty good stuff from the young man.
Yeah, and I love, by the way, both 2020 draft guys, which is crazy. And this is why we've seen the Braves take a lot of college players.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, this is why we've seen the Braves take so many college players. Yeah, I think it was 19 out of 20 last year, too. And the thing is with Strider, he doesn't have that third pitch yet. I think he's kind of getting there. And I just, at this point, I don't want to break something or fix something that isn't broken. I think Elder has looked pretty good. He's looked tough. Like, that's the thing, man, is Elder does not look shook. When he gets in a bad spot, he's working. Like, he is still just attacking the hitter. He's not letting anything get to him. He's got his blinders on, and I like that a lot. And it kind of reminds me of like early Bryce Wilson when Bryce Wilson was pitching so well. I hope Elder's a little bit better than Bryce Wilson turned out to be.
You know who he reminds me of is Soroka.
Yeah, I mean he's just battling.
He has like maybe one more pitch than Soroka. I think Soroka's primarily 3 pitches, and he relies heavily on that sinker. But yeah, I mean, just the way that Elder is able to use both sides of the plate. He doesn't throw the ball hard, but when you can throw the ball 90 in on a guy's hands and then, just pound the outside of the plate and then come back in on his hands and have complete control of the plate and keep the hitters guessing. So it's so much more difficult than people can imagine. I mean, people just look at the radar gun and they're like, oh, this guy is only throwing 91, 92. Like, he can't be an absolute stud. Well, no, like he can, because look at his pitches. All of them go different ways, and he can throw to both sides of the plate, and he doesn't walk people. Now, his control was a little bit of an issue in the minors. We'll see if that comes back to haunt him, later in the majors. But I've loved what I've seen of Elder. If he can continue pitching with this confidence and keep pitching out of jams and keep, throwing strikes, I think, you ride him. I just don't know.
I do think Spencer Strider is a starter. I do think he is a starter at some point. But for right now, they're both in their respective roles pitching pretty well to me. I just don't want to mess with that at this moment. Maybe that'll change, especially if Elder has a bad start or two. But right now, I think it's pretty solid. Pitching has not been an issue. Like, people were getting on Charlie Morton last night when the game was 3-0, and I'm like, yeah, we don't have a run. We don't have a hit.
We're playing the Dodgers. We're playing the Dodgers. They average 6 runs a game. Like, Freddie Freeman hit a home run on his knuckles. Like, that was a 2-run shot in the first inning. Like, he shut him down the rest of the way. Yeah, I mean, Charlie Morton pitched fine. I mean, I think he hung 1 to Edwin Rios. That's about the only pitch I was like, oh, yeah, that was a bad pitch.
In the 6th inning when we still didn't have any runs. Like, that was the thing. It's killing me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and Morton's going to be completely fine. Fried obviously looked the best I've ever seen him. That was an unbelievable start. Kyle Wright, a lot of confidence in. Ian Anderson pitched really well the last time out. So, yeah, I've always had confidence in this rotation. And the bullpen, as far as, like, the top guys, I mean, they've been pretty lights out. I mean, Kenley Jansen had a shaky, 1 start there to begin the season. But, Matzik, Minter looks great, which is great to see. I love what I've seen out of McHugh. Will Smith looked good. So, I mean, overall, I think the pitching staff's going to be great. And when Acuna comes back, obviously Riley will be back probably tomorrow. This is going to be a scary bunch, and the floodgates are going to open, and it's going to come in bunches.
Yeah, and we always talk about those AA under the radar pickups. Tyler Thornburg might be one of those guys, man. Tyler Thornburg hadn't looked too bad. I think he's maybe got 4 innings. He's looked okay. I mean, he's usually come in I think mop up for the most part.
Yeah, usually I'm done paying attention I'm done paying attention when he's in.
I'm usually scrolling. By the time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. Good deal. I'm sure we'll be back next week talking some more Braves. Hopefully we can get a couple sweeps in. We We don't even have a series win yet. I just realized that. We have 2
We'll get
splits.
it against the Marlins.
Yeah, we're gonna get it again. We're gonna get
especially if their father comes home, if daddy comes home with the milk.
Man, how about that? How about if that happens and they beam him? What if they beam him? He comes home and the first pitch they beam him. That would start a brawl. If that didn't start a brawl, I don't know what would.
Hey, if that did happen, you know what I need? If that does happen, I need Matt Olson to be the first guy out of the dugout, ready to just absolutely fuck someone up.
Oh, I love that. All right, well, we'll be back next week with another episode.